This is a 10-minute brief, and what you're about to hear might change how you see the razor's edge between peace and global conflict. How many times can you push a nation before it pushes back? For Russia, the answer was one provocation too many. When Russian drones violated Polish airspace, it wasn't just a border incident. It was the final test. And Poland's response wasn't just a diplomatic protest. It was a direct, public, and chilling ultimatum delivered to the world stage. The next Russian plane that crosses our border will be shot down. This is no longer a Cold War. It's a game of aerial chicken with nuclear consequences. At the United Nations, the atmosphere was tense. But the words of Polish Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski cut through the silence. Like a missile log, his message to the Kremlin was brutally simple. If another missile or aircraft enters our space and gets shot down, please don't come here to whine about it. The final phrase echoed through the chamber. You have been warned. This wasn't the language of diplomacy. This was the language of a nation that has run out of patience. Subscribe to the 10-minute brief and never look at war the same way again. But this isn't just Poland standing alone. This is a coordinated front. Germany, France, and the UK have held tense, closed-door meetings in Moscow, delivering the same stark message. And in a move that shatters any hope of division in the West, the United States has thrown its full weight behind the threat. For the first time in decades, the alliance has drawn a red line in the sky. So why would Russia risk this? The incursions are not accidents. They are deliberate probes, a strategy of psychological warfare designed to expose weakness, to fracture NATO's resolve. Behind closed doors, Russian diplomats admit these flights are retaliation for Western support of Ukraine. They believe they are already in a confrontation. But by making that belief public, they have created a self-fulfilling prophecy. Every flight is now an act of aggression. Every flight risks annihilation. The Kremlin's response has been a predictable roar of threats. Prominent figures are declaring that any downed aircraft would be an act of war. But this is where the strategy collapses into hypocrisy. In 2015, Turkey, a NATO member, shot down a Russian jet that crossed its border from Syria. Russia threatened, but ultimately accepted an apology. They knew then what they must know now. Attacking a NATO member triggers Article 5. It means war with every single ally. The question is, has Putin's calculus changed? Is he willing to bet his regime on a single, arrogant flight into Polish airspace? The numbers are staggering. Russia's military, on paper, dwarfs Poland's. But Poland is not alone. They fight with the full might of NATO. This is the essential truth of modern conflict. Sovereignty is collective. An attack on one is an attack on all. The Polish foreign minister said it best. In this scenario, Russia will lose because we, the West, are far more powerful. We won't be fighting alone. We are now in a dangerous waiting game. The world holds its breath, watching the radars. Will Russia back down? Or will it call the West's bluff, forcing a pilot to make a decision that could change history? The warning has been issued. The pieces are in place. All that's missing is a spark. So we stand at the precipice. But what does that moment actually look like? Imagine the scene in a Polish Air Defense Command Center. A blip appears on the radar screen, crossing from Belarus. The room goes silent. Officers track its speed, its trajectory. It's a Russian Su-35 Flankery, a top-tier fighter jet. Is it a navigational error? A deliberate insult? Or a pre-planned sacrifice? The pilot of that jet is now the most important person in the world. Does he even know he's flying into a kill box? Or is he following orders, betting his life that the Poles are bluffing? This is the essence of psychological warfare. It's a battle of wills fought with radar signatures and nerve. The Russian strategy is one of erosion to make these violations so common that they become normalized, that the world grows numb to the provocation. But Poland has just reset the clock. By issuing a public ultimatum, they've made it impossible to back down without losing all credibility. The cost of inaction is now higher than the cost of action. For the pilot in the cockpit and the officer at the missile battery, the abstract game of geopolitics is about to become terrifyingly real. Subscribe to the 10-minute brief as we dissect the breaking points of global order. And let's be clear about what a shoot-down means. It's not just an explosion in the sky. It's a political detonation. The Kremlin's propaganda machine is already primed. They will not show the flight path proving the violation. They will show the grieving family of a heroic pilot martyred by NATO aggression. They will demand a response. The question is, what response do they actually want? A full-scale war with NATO is a suicide pact for the Russian state. But a limited, symbolic retaliation? Perhaps a cyber attack that cripples Warsaw's power grid? A missile strike on the Polish air base that launched the interceptor? This is a fog of war, where a single action can spiral in a dozen unpredictable directions. This is also a battle of narratives. Russia wants to frame this as an expansionist NATO provoking a defense of Russia. The West frames it as a lawful defense against repeated aggression. But in the digital age, the first story to spread often wins. The real first shot in this conflict may not be a missile, but a viral video, deceptively edited, launched into the social media battlefield to justify the violence to come. Beyond the immediate crisis lies a deeper strategic shift. For decades, NATO's strategy has been one of deterrence. The promise of a massive response was meant to prevent any attack from ever happening. But Poland's ultimatum signals a move from deterrence to active defense. It's no longer about promising retaliation after an attack. It's about preemptively destroying the threat the moment it appears. This is a far more aggressive posture, one that accepts a higher risk of immediate confrontation to prevent a larger, slower-burning conflict down the line. It's a calculated gamble that Putin is a rational actor who will back down when faced with certain consequences. But what if the calculation is wrong? What if the violation isn't a lone jet, but a simulated attack? A swarm of drones designed to overwhelm radar systems, masking the approach of something more sinister? The rules of engagement become critical. How does a soldier on the ground distinguish between a provocation and the first wave of an invasion? This is a burden of command in the 21st century. The economic stakes are equally colossal. The moment that missile fires, global markets will convulse. Oil prices will skyrocket. Supply chains, already fragile, will snap. The world economy, which has become the silent, unwitting hostage of this geopolitical standoff, will be thrust into turmoil. The cost will be measured not just in lives, but in livelihoods across the globe. This is a terrifying reality of modern conflict. A decision made in seconds by a single commander, based on a blip on a screen, can echo through history. It can topple economies, redraw alliances, and determine the fate of millions. The border between Poland and Belarus is no longer just a line on a map. It is the fault line of the free world, and the pressure is building. Thanks for watching the 10-minute brief, where history isn't just told, it's felt.